In my last garage AC video, I made a number of changes, some of them aimed at improving the efficiency of my setup, making the cool down happen faster and reach a lower temperature, primarily putting some insulation on the exhaust tube there. Those didn't really produce any meaningful effect. Despite that, at the end of the video, I was saying that I wasn't interested in or wasn't planning to pursue garage door insulation, understanding that that's really where the big breakthrough is going to come. I did not have in mind to do that. Among the reasons I wasn't thinking I would do garage door insulation was price and also the complexity of it, just thinking that it would be overly challenging to get insulation bats and get them secured and have them be looking halfway decent and well seated and just not being a mess on the door. But what I didn't realize is that there were kits available out there, styrofoam insulation kits. So in response to that last video, I had a handful of comments just saying, that the insulation really would be the big breakthrough. So I went out and looked online, and that's when I discovered that there are kits available that are a clean look and sized right to fit in a door like this. So that's what I've purchased here. 3 kits. Each kit is designed for a 9-foot door. Now I have a single 8-foot door on this side and a double 16-foot door over there. So I've got 3 kits here that I'm going to install. Seems pretty straightforward. You just cut it to fit. It's 8 pieces, so they're on a standard single door. Those typically be 8 areas. So each one will require some cutting. I think primarily left to right, sizing them so that it fits in each of the 8 segments. But it seems pretty straightforward, so I'm going to get started on that here in just a minute. To help it stay put, I've got a couple rolls of foil tape. I don't know if I'm going to need all of this, but what I have to work around here is, particularly over on this bigger door here in Florida for the hurricane reinforcement, there's these big bars that go across, and these panels that I'll get out here in a second, they're designed to flex slightly when you install them, so you can bend them a little bit and they snap into the overhang on the top and the bottom of each segment. But with those bars in place over there, they're going to be in the way of doing that. So one of the reasons I'm going to have the foil tape is, my plan is I'm not going to remove any of those bars. I just don't want to get into that. I mean, that would create the space to bend each panel, get it in there, but I don't want to start removing and replacing those reinforcement bars. So I'm going to cut a lot of the pieces, particularly again on that side, in half horizontally in order to get them in place, and then use that foil tape to bind them back together and make it like it's a single piece per section. And this stuff, I've already fiddled with a little bit of it. It's very light. The foil tape will have no trouble holding it in place when I bridge 2 panels together with that. So that's the plan. Just a lot of measuring and cutting. Here's a look at how these panels come packaged. Again, there are 8 of them, and the dimensions are per each of the 8 sheets: 20 inches wide, or 20 inches tall, 54 inches wide, and 1 1/4 inch thick. It did come with this user guide or installation guide. Again, it's very straightforward, just measure and trim. And they do have a vinyl backing, which will give the side that faces out towards the garage a more finished look. This installation guide notes that the specific type of foam here is expanded polystyrene insulation. I bought these from Home Depot online. Home Depot, I think each kit, and again I have 3 of them, each kit was about $60. So, and then some, again, this foil tape, I may only need 1 of the 2 rolls, but roughly this was about $200 to do this project. So not exactly cheap, but not terribly expensive. Hopefully it's the kind of thing that it pays for itself with running the AC in here. Just make it more efficient, cut down on the cost of actually operating the AC, and recover the cost of these 3 kits. One of the things that was mentioned in actually both of the other 2 videos I've done on this project was about a mini split system. And that would be a more permanent and likely higher efficiency setup, but That's not something I can do in this garage, really largely driven by the fact that the outdoor component of a mini split, I have a strict HOA here, and where it would have to be placed is I couldn't conceal it. So while that would be a better option, it's not something that's an option for me. So my hope here is that doing this insulation will really improve the efficiency of this portable. I might have said this in one of the earlier videos, but I don't use this a ton. I tend to just set it up when I'm gonna be working, doing a special project in the garage. It only takes about 15 minutes to do all the sealing around the door and getting that outlet piece in place. So I'm perfectly happy with the portable solution, even with the reduced efficiency versus a mini split. And I'm optimistic that this kit is gonna make this setup quite a bit better. A quick look at the tools that are needed to size these. I have a drywall T-square, which will make things a lot easier to get a nice straight line. Pencil to mark that line, measuring tape, and a utility knife. That's it. Progress report. I've finished the single door. These strengthening beams across the back of the garage are making this quite a bit more difficult. In fact, I'm having to cut each piece at least once, and down there on the bottom where there's two of those strengthening beams, those support beams, braces, I'm having to cut the panel twice to get it in there. Now these panels do have a surprising amount of bend to them. Nonetheless, unfortunately, I'm having to do these cuts in order to get them into place, which means that there's a fair amount of tape that has to go up to put them together, hold them together, but it's all going pretty well. It's not exactly a work of art, but it's a garage. It doesn't have to be pretty. So the easy door is done. Now I move on to the harder door with many more segments to cut. In terms of cutting these panels, it does make a fair amount of mess of the styrofoam breaking up. I think if I had a slightly larger utility knife that could go all the way through the panel, I might get a cleaner break, but mine isn't quite big enough to fully cut it. So that means a little bit of the material does kind of break off. It actually is pretty easy to deal with. Just kind of run my hand over the cut edge a couple times and it knocks the loose pieces off. But what that means is with the mess that falls on the floor as part of that, I've had to get out the shop vac as an extra tool needed to do this job. So shop vac, and then also a towel. The towel I'm using to press the tape down just between my hand and the tape. Makes it much easier to push the tape down and secure it without tearing up my hand. So one door down, essentially two to go. All of the panels are now in place. It's really not a bad job. A little bit slow, a lot of measuring, marking, cutting, but not too bad. Actually popping the panels into the door is the easiest part. And again, just because of the number of segments I have on this door, it takes quite a bit of cutting, but all done. I do have to clean up the tape a little bit. Before I had the foil tape all over this door, and I was having some trouble with the edges of the foil tape rolling up. So I've switched over when I went to that door and then came back and replaced the tape over here for the most part with a Gorilla tape, and that's working much better. So I still need to spend a few minutes cleaning up some of the edges there and a little bit more tape on that door, but functionally all of the panels are in place and working now, so getting close to the end of this job. But with everything in place and it doing what it's going to do, I can start to take some measurements, see what kind of results this produced. In the first video I did in this project, I took a temperature reading on the surface of the door, uncovered, no insulation at that point, of course, and it was over 100 degrees. So now I'll do a reading with the insulation in place, and it's 85.5 degrees. So significant decrease in the amount of heat radiating through the doors. So it's time to put this new setup to the test, see what kind of improvement I can get in the speed in terms of cooling down the garage and the low temperature I can reach with these insulation panels in place. Already here in the hottest part of the day, I've just turned the system on and it's starting at 82 degrees, whereas on a very similar type day outside, very hot lately, heat index over 100 degrees. The interior temperature here in the garage was starting at 90. So here with the insulation and early afternoon, it's 8 degrees lower before I even start running this system. So it's underway now, and I'll let it run for a couple hours and see what we get. All right, final results with the door insulation in place. The system's able to get the garage now down to 77 degrees. Which is a significant improvement over the best that I was able to get in the hot part of the day before I put the insulation up. In that case, it was 84 degrees, so a 7-degree improvement by putting the insulation up. So that seems like it's worthwhile. Seems like over time that'll end up paying for itself. So somewhat surprisingly, the output temperature, the air temperature, is pretty much the same, whether it's recirculating the cool air in the garage or pulling it from the outside through this intake tube. This is the output temperature with the system pulling the outside warm air into the condenser. 53.6 degrees. And this is the temperature, the output temperature with the external intake tube removed, so it's pulling air from within the room, the chilled air from within the room into the condenser. And in this case, it's almost exactly the same at 53.4. And the benefit the manufacturer touts for this 2-tube system with the external intake is that you don't get the negative pressure in the room. And I could notice that when I disconnected this intake tube from outside and started the system. You can actually hear it pull the doors a little bit, just shake them, because it's creating a reduced pressure inside this space here. So, I mean, it stabilizes instantly, but you definitely notice that it has a short-term impact on the pressure in the room. So I'm just going to stick with using the outside connection. So just to recap, the lowest temperature I've been able to achieve is about 77 degrees, but prior to the insulation, that required getting it started early in the morning before the heat of the day built. But now with the insulation in place, I'm able to get that same 77 degrees by starting the system in the hot part of the day. So the garage door insulation was definitely worth it. I think perhaps the biggest benefit of this will be not so much when I'm running the AC, but just on all other days, just having the normal temperature that it gets up to be lower. If it's 8 degrees lower than what it would be without the insulation, that seems like a big positive. So that's going to do it for this project. This is the setup I'm going to roll with. Thanks for watching and have a great day.